Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a special Independence Day TEDXcellence episode starring me, Scribelight. Is that loud enough? There we go. Yes, everyone, it is the 250th anniversary of the birth of our nation, as it were, in 1776. And we're celebrating that today. And I know it might be difficult to tell, but this is a blue vest. It's a very dark blue vest. So I've got the red, white, and blue thing going on. I work with what I have, so I did my best there. But anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a special ambush stream, TEDxcellence Day stream. For many reasons. I mean, not only the fact that it's the birth of our nation, but it's a time to... for those of us that live in America, or those of us that are yearning to breathe free in America, like most of our guests for the World Cup, think about all the things that have had to take place, all the sacrifices that have had to be made to lead us to where we are as the best country in the world. Oh, it's not the best country in the world. Well, you tell me, where do more people want to come to than anywhere else in the world when it comes to, like, getting out of the place that they're at? America. That's right. As compared to things going on in the UK right now, just as one example, we got it good. You don't know how good you have it in this country till you go somewhere else and see just how things work in most other places. And a lot of the people that are down on America are like, oh, this place sucks, or my American nightmare. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. No idea what you're talking about. Is America perfect? No. But we seek to make a more perfect union as time goes on. And I think if you compare where we are now with where we were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, we're way better off. Even with all of the problems of people seemingly forgetting history and trying to restart, legal discrimination, everything. We'll talk about DEI another time. Maybe, unless the speaker in this talk brings it up. But either way, all that being said, who's joining me on this ambush, 4th of July, Independence Day, 250th anniversary, TEDxcellence? Angela Arriaga, good afternoon. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Digiworm, hello. Funtime Bats, hello. And also, guys, just so I don't forget for myself, pinned to the chat box is a link to the donation page to the Gary Sinise Foundation, which works tirelessly to support our veterans in many ways, but especially in building them homes. There was a video that was put out just the other day by the Gary Sinise Foundation profiling a lady who lost both of her arms jumping onto an IED to save her team in combat. What do you even say to something like that? What could you possibly do in recompense to that kind of sacrifice? I don't know. But the Gary Sinise Foundation built her a home, all her own. And just watching it, man, I got choked up. Gotta tell you, I've donated to the Gary Sinise Foundation before, and so if you have the opportunity to do so, please take a look at that link. If you can donate, please donate. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. Mr. E, good afternoon. And also, Mr. E is angry. He was unsubbed without his approval at some point. Well, on Independence Day, I promote freedom of choice. YouTube should not have the right to unsub you, so be sure to check and make sure you're still subbed to the channel, because you never know. The algorithm may work against you, if you can believe it. Mike R, good afternoon. Jay Blizza, hello. Old Guy Gamer, good afternoon. Did I already say hello to Blue-Eyed Scream? Hello, Blue-Eyed Scream. Daryl Odell, good afternoon. Sabian187, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Adam Easy, good afternoon to you too. Matt T, good afternoon. Mark Fields, thank you so much. To you and your wonderful chat, happy 4th of July. Positive vibes to you all and be safe. Thank you, Mark, so much. And to you and everybody, yes, have a safe, and happy 4th of July. Don't hold the firecracker in your hand when you're lighting it. Just don't. Just don't. Peter Bilt, good afternoon. TFA Oryx, I haven't said your name in a while. How's it going? Dina B. Oh my gosh, it's Old Home Week here. Dina B, good afternoon. Kay Scholl, or Kirsten Scholl over on the X Machine. Yes, guys, I am simulcasting over on the X Machine, so if you have the opportunity to retweet the stream out on X, I'd appreciate it. Let's see, who else do we have here? Simon Willikins, hello. And I think, is that everybody? That might be everybody. Scroll. Oh, Draco Rincewind. Good afternoon. But yes, guys, so just as luck would have it, and I'm sure it wasn't planned at all, TED Talks just posted within the last day a talk titled Why Democracy Requires Renewal. Now, when I saw that title, I thought to myself, is this the tree of liberty sometimes needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants kind of democracy needs renewal? Or something else? I don't know, but this might just be a very educational TEDx talk. But I thought, or sorry, TED Talk. This is an official TED Talk. At least for the sake of the holiday and the sentiments thereof, let's discuss democracy. Because, well, in part, and let me underscore this, in part, that's why we're here. However, is our speaker going to make the same mistake that so many people do by saying America is a democracy, when America is a federal republic? We have democratic processes in selecting our representatives. You know, it's not like it's trial by combat to figure out who represents us, unlike Wakanda, but we are not a democracy. Now, I don't know what our speaker's going to say on that. If he says America's a democracy, that's going to be a WTF circle. It's going to be, you know, contradicts own point, fails to make argument, all that kind of stuff. By the way, the bingo card, guys, today, I didn't put it in the, I put it in the description, did I? If I didn't put it in the description, let me put it in the chat right now. It is America. Today's keyword is America. I'm saving the winner of the bingo wheel from Thursday for next week's TEDxcellence, official TEDxcellence. So yes, in the bingo card link, you just need America, capital letters, as the algorithmic word. The link is in the chat box. And if I didn't put in the description, I will attempt to do so now. I didn't put in the description. Okay, so let's do that right there. Okay, so for future reference, for those of you who are watching in the future, or if you want to refresh your page, the link should be in the description now. Assassin of the Gray, good afternoon. Yeah, so anyway, the topic is democracy. The title is Why Democracy Requires Renewal. Just for sound's sake here, I'm going to switch back to my usual piano music. I find it a bit more calming. I can concentrate. I do appreciate the Americana I downloaded for this presentation, but let's get back to the classics. So with that, this talk clocks in at just over 14 minutes. Remember, the bingo card is America, capital letters. And there is no, we're not going to do the bingo wheel today because we'll save that for the official TEDx talk. But yes, if you have any thoughts on the anniversary of our country's founding, or any stories or anything else you'd like to be known, let me know in the chat. Just put America and then put your comment after so I can see it, and I will bring them up on the screen as we proceed. So, with all that being said, let's proceed. This is Why Democracy Requires Renewal from Michael Dimmock, or Dymock, or, you know, at Tanagra, something? Anyway.
What happened 250 years ago was a spark that ignited the world.
I thought that happened with the Trinity test. Or that was one of the fears Oppenheimer had, that, you know, he would ignite the atmosphere. Anyway, you guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat below. Scribelight, 14 minutes, so using ranting monkey math, 7 hours. Yes. Well, usually my sort of rule when it comes to TEDx talks, as I've noticed over time, is you take the running time of the TEDx, or TED Talk, whichever, and you multiply it by about 4 or 5. And that's approximately the length of my stream. Something like that. So if it's a 15-minute TEDx talk, it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes, maybe edging into an hour and a half. Something like that. 20-minute TEDx talk, it's going to go a little longer. But then it also depends on just how interesting the talk is, because if the person keeps saying boring things or nothing to comment on, it could go very quickly. But anyway, Is democracy like a license at the DMV? Sure. Could be. Loud and clear, says Attribution. He sounds like a bundle of sticks. Digiworm. Digiworm. And Keeverdam. Hi, Keeverdam. Just stopping by. Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day, Keeverdam. Hope you have a fun one and a safe one. Okay, a spark was ignited 250 years ago.
When the founders articulated the principles of democracy and
yes,
proceeded to fight for and win them, it inspired democratic conversations around the globe.
Okay. Recorded at TED Democracy. I didn't know that TED had a subcategory of democracy. All right.
Now, almost all of us can remember those inalienable rights identified at the start of that Declaration of Independence, right?
I suppose. Well, I keep waiting for the shoe to drop and whatever he's going for.
Right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
If you remember your civics class, that next sentence was arguably the more important one.
Do tell.
Because that's when they go on to say that governments exist to secure those rights and that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed.
Yes, that's what makes us a republic. Yes?
Right. In 1776, that was the proverbial shot heard around the world.
Because we were fighting a king.
Right. And their audacious act of democratic imagination also inspired a particular form of civic pride and identity in this country. This is a country united around common principles, not a common ruler, a common history, a common faith, a common creed.
Well, I would argue that the Constitution itself is a creed. I would say the rights laid down in the Constitution and the tenets thereof, etc., effectively is the American creed. So we are united around that notion, or that set of notions. That'd be my argument. All that being said, I feel as though, I could be wrong, I feel as though we're being set up. I feel as though we're being buttered up. Yeah, over time, the idea of being a country based on one particular religion or one particular ruler or that kind of thing, sure. I mean, obviously, the founders themselves were a multitude of varying shades of belief and so on. But yes, so the free expression of a religion without there being a state religion, etc. Okay. But like I say, I think at this point it would be easy to say and not wrong to say that the Constitution itself is American values. And we unite around that fundamentally.
In a way, what binds us is this very idea that this nation can be, hopes to be, an inspiration to future generations and a beacon to the world.
In part, sure. Like I say, I feel like I'm being set up. Jill Powers, the River Daughter. Happy 250th 4th of July. Scribelight, Jay Blizza, Dina B, Keeverdale, The Assassin of the Grey, My Car, Adabisi, Blue Eyed Screen. Fireworks and sparklers for everybody. Hi, Jill Powers. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you have a fun and safe 4th.
What we sometimes forget, though, is that this system was never meant to be static.
I never forget that. You know why I never forget that? Because there's these things called amendments. There's this thing called the Supreme Court. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I don't forget that.
The founders didn't hand us a finished product. They handed us an ongoing project.
Yes, I saw that speech. What was that? What was that movie with Brendan Fraser and Joe Pesci, where Joe Pesci gives that speech? Oh God, what was it called? Someone in the chat's going to remember before I do. Anyway, I remember the image of it and the tenets of the speech, essentially. But yes. Yes, it is an evolving document. It is malleable through many hoops you must jump. But yes.
That requires engagement and creativity from one generation to the next. So our responsibility is to carry that democratic imagination forward.
Federal Republic. He hasn't said the words America is a democracy yet, but he has all but said it. Okay.
To make sure that this democratic republic doesn't become static.
Federal Republic. It is not a democratic republic. It is a federal republic. Democracy is part of the process that elects our representatives in the republic. And we are a federation of states. We are not a democratic republic. Federal republic.
Right? Or stuck, or rigid, or even cynical.
I can be as cynical as I want, because this is a free country.
So, why am I standing here today?
To try to sell me on something or gaslight me into thinking that what you're saying is accurate to reality? I don't know.
I'm at the Pew Research Center.
Oh, well, there's your first problem.
And we care deeply about understanding where Americans are and how they're thinking.
Do you care about understanding so much as you care about influencing? I gotta wonder.
And to do that, we ask people a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And
are they tailored questions? Are they leading questions? You'll forgive me if I'm skeptical.
And we don't take that process lightly. We believe that when we ask people to offer us their views and values and opinions and concerns, we're asking you to give us something precious, something private, right? And so our obligation is to listen with respect and to report out on what we hear with care and with clarity.
And with accuracy?
And so what brings me here to share is that
you're advertising for... Okay, let's go to the bingo card real quick, just to take a break from this for the sake of YouTube and my own mentality. Okay, so today's bingo card, again, link is in the description. If you haven't already seen it, refresh the page because I updated it, or I'll put the link again in the chat box if you don't already have it. Today's bingo card is America! And if the bingo card is correctly formatted, up in the top left-hand corner will be coin's new buzzword or buzz phrase, and in the bottom right-hand corner will be economic disparity. So let's go over this real quick. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase? Not yet. Systematic or institutional? I think talking about America as an institution, our system of government, so on and so forth, I think that fits. Again, systemic institutional is the one square out of the block that I either need a rewrite for or a replacement. It just feels a bit too broad. But either way, sales pitch for product or service, the Pew Research Center. Boy, oh boy. If that wasn't an ad for the Pew Research Center, I don't know what is. So systemic, institutional, and pure sales pitch for product or service circle already. Patriarchy. Not yet. Collectivize his own demographic. I mean, if he says as Americans, I guess it technically counts. I'd rather something a bit more granular than that, but let's wait and see. Privilege. I could see an argument depending. We'll wait on that. Deceptive statistics. I mean, I can't say he hasn't been quasi-deceptive so far, but we need some statistics first. And since he is coming from a survey firm, I'm sure we'll get some. Mind reading or assumes motives. Okay, and this is going to be, I want to make this distinction now. If he's simply reporting on the results of the surveys they've run, that's not inherently mind reading assumes motives. If he tries to derive some conclusions from that outside of the specific questions asked, then maybe. We'll wait and see. It's going to be a fine line, but let's wait. Feminism, not yet. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. If he's a surveyor, I could see him using that in one, or using the suggestion of that. We'll see. Childhood or family anecdote? Not yet. Leaves out vital context. I want to say calling it a democratic republic. I'm going to wait on that. Plays victim? Not yet. Contradicts own point or fails to make argument. I'm circling that now for democratic republic. Because if that's where he's starting from, on its face, he's already dropped all the balls, as it were. But I'll leave it there. If I'm convinced otherwise or he corrects himself later, I'll be willing to take it back. Word salad, not yet so far. Marginalized or marginalization, not yet. DEI philosophy, no. White supremacy, no. A list, we'll see if he gives us a formal list of like what steps he thinks need to be taken to fix the country. Weightless example or non sequitur, not so as you'd notice yet. Benevolent condescension. Again, I'm leaning towards it, but we'll wait. Anecdote that probably never happened. Nothing so far. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. And lastly, economic disparity? Not yet. So far, on the board, we have systemic or institutional, sales pitch for product or service, and contradicts own point or fails to make argument, generally speaking. There may be more that is oncoming, but we'll wait on those. Here we go.
What we're hearing from Americans recently is pretty dark.
How dark? Is it grim dark? In the grim dark future, there is only war kind of dark?
It's a public that feels scared and stuck and divided.
Gosh, I wonder who's been fueling that over the last 10 years in particular. I wonder where they've been getting this terrifying notion that the death of democracy is oncoming. And we're in a democratic crisis all the time. And that all of our rights are going to be taken away from us. And that deportation squads are going to storm every house in the country.
But when we listen even more closely, we hear a determination and a readiness for innovation in the voice of Americans. That,
like what? Yeah, okay. You talked about clarity in relation to what you do. I really, really hope you don't just talk in generalizations over this entire thing.
echoes that spirit of the founders, right? And I think offers a path forward.
Path forward. Okay. And here we get back to basics of the persuasive essay. You have to articulate the problem. What is the problem? The people that you survey feel scared. Okay, but why? What is actually the problem? Not a emotional reaction to something, but a functional problem that can be addressed. This is where you got 3 minutes into your 14-minute talk, so now's the time to get very specific and offer it with clarity.
So let me start with the dark part, right? Where are we today?
Where are we today?
Is this public mood, and bring a little bit of data behind it.
The mood. Okay, I'm less concerned about the mood than I am with the facts, but go ahead.
Americans are feeling sort of stuck in a doom loop.
Well, they need to get off of Twitter. Stop doom scrolling.
Of sorts, and it's made up of 3 key components, 3 trends. And the first, I almost don't need to say out loud, is partisan polarization, right?
Right, and where has that come from primarily over the last 10 years?
We no longer just disagree over issues and which candidates can best lean us forward. We've grown to, at a civic level, mistrust and even use dehumanizing language about each other.
Really? Wow.
And America really stands apart globally for this level of polarization.
I mean, a certain level of polarization is good. If we agreed on everything all the time, that would be Borg-like. But yes, things have become rampantly polarized over the last several years. I mean, the absolute and utter death cults that have grown, not just on the left, but most prominently on the left over the last several years. I still And to my mind, it still hasn't been redressed in any meaningful way or talked about enough. I still feel an echo of dread whenever I think about, during the course of the pandemic, seeing people on either side of the political persuasions hoping death upon their political opponents, either because they got the vaccine or they didn't get the vaccine, and celebrating, even in a speculative sense, when someone got sick or someone died and their cause of death wasn't known yet, and they were hoping beyond hope that it was because they either did or they didn't get the shot or something because of their political persuasion. And then we had a whole refresh of that same kind of phenomena with Charlie Kirk's assassination last year. Admittedly, I had not been as engaged politically or, made myself aware politically of things as much after 2016 than before 2016. But even through the worst of the initial years of the first Trump administration, the time of the pandemic, and certainly last year with Charlie Kirk, I'm taken aback by the utter lack of humanity and compassion, to basic human compassion, in favor of political partisanship. Insane. So yes, I don't deny that there is a problem, but again, I have to ask, who has been driving that? The media and other politicians. All right?
We surveyed around the world during and after the pandemic. Just to use one recent example we remember. And throughout, the American public was the most or among the most divided.
Why is that, do you think? Do you think it was because you had entertainers and media figures and politicians and even the president himself, Joe Biden, coming out and saying that people who didn't get vaccinated are the problem? You had people publicly saying that people who decided not to go for the vaccine should not be given care. That this was, natural selection and so on and so forth. Or the drug companies that were allowed to run rampant with their false promises of efficacy. And putting a moral stamp on people who made a decision for themselves. Destroying their careers, destroying their businesses because they chose not to go along with the government line and mandates. Why do you think that is? Are you going to talk about the sources of this or just the effect?
Whether it was the outbreak, vaccination, government responses.
Yes, and how has nearly every one of those subjects panned out over time and examination?
Civil society.
Yeah.
And after the worst of the pandemic was over.
I don't know that the worst of the pandemic is over. I think the benchmarks that have been set over the course of that period of time are still with us and are hurting us even now. The fact that we're not addressing and have not reached any kind of justice for the injustices done to everybody in the course of that period of time. I still think that there's a lot left to be done about it, but that's me personally.
81% of Americans said that collective experience just drove us further apart.
It did. How do we resolve that? By telling the truth and bringing people who did us wrong to justice, maybe?
That's more than in any other country that we surveyed. The second trend in this is we become more disconnected from each other.
You're not going to talk about the sources of these problems. Okay, the problems or the lingering hurt of the pandemic is not a democracy problem. It is an accountability problem. In my opinion. And just as another note, the fact that I can, at least at this moment, until I'm shut down otherwise, the fact that I can talk about specifically the pandemic in these words and in this tone. Now, I was unable to do, most of YouTube was unable to do during the pandemic because, oh, you're spreading conspiracy theories. And who was putting pressure on the social media companies to punish anybody who wouldn't talk along the party line? Are you going to bring that up? You want to talk about the democracy in those actions? Are you?
Basic trust in our neighbors has fallen over 40 years, and Americans have come to doubt the very wisdom of the crowds, right? The collective wisdom that really is the foundation of democracy.
The collective wisdom is the foundation of democracy. If the collective wisdom was the foundation of democracy, then why would you need to vote? Why would you need to debate? Why would you need to amend? Okay, and just for transparency's sake, I am not a constitutional scholar. I am not a political scientist. I am as layman as it gets with all of this stuff. Does that statement make any sense whatsoever? I mean, again, aside from a respect for and an appreciation of our Constitution as a concept, what are you talking about relying on the collective wisdom for democracy?
Right? The collective wisdom that really is the foundation of democracy.
That's my reflexive answer. I'm not quite sure what he means. For those of you listening at home, he has a chart up right now saying, Americans feel trapped in a doom loop. The share of adults who say, quote, most people can be trusted, unquote, has declined in the 21st century. And then there's a chart showing a gradual, spiky descent of a line from 1972 up through 2024. It says 6 in 10, the number of adults who say they have little or no confidence in the wisdom of the American people when it comes to making political decisions. Maybe I'm just too cynical for my own good. I don't know. Jay Blizzard, thank you so much. Oi, it's the Brain Police. You got a license for that gray matter? All right, chap, you're coming with me. Stuffed into the shoe boot of a car, LOL. What about the frunk? How about the frunk of a car? Why not have a frunk for the police? The fuzz. Gen T Maxi. Good afternoon. Happy Independence Day, Gen T Maxi. I know you guys just had Canada Day the other day. But nice to see you. Walter Tomaszewski. Good afternoon. Politicians didn't want to deal with it. Trump tried to toss it off, but was forced to deal with it. Biden got in and instantly said, it's over. Let's get this behind us. Both wanted to brush it off. Are you talking about the pandemic or something else? Not sure. All right. So, yes. As time has gone on, and here's what I think is part of the problem, if it's a problem, and this is the debatable part. The fact that with social media, with the instantaneous nature of us being able to share our ideas, when before the channels of information and difference of opinion were sort of tunnel visioned through very controlled media outlets. Now that we are inundated all the time with people's ideas and opinions from all over the place, a level of certainty over what the mainstream thinking is has been obliterated for the most part. Because there's a lot more uncertainty about what people actually think. And the variances between, well, I think this way about this, but this way about that. But those two things don't align with either one party or the other. Could that be it? And is that a bad thing? I mean, and I guess I'd have to ask our expert here, does that drive people to become more or less active in the political process and more informed and aware?
And again, America stands apart from other countries in this sense of disconnection. Last year, we surveyed people in 24 countries around the world, and the American public was the least likely to say they feel connected to their fellow citizens in their country.
See, I'm not trying to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, but I could see that being interpreted one of two ways, depending.
And among the least likely to say even that they feel connected to people in their local communities.
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't felt connected to the people in my local community for the last 20 years or something, because I live in an apartment building and it's constantly changing. I mean, you know, for as many people that can't afford to live in a house in a set neighborhood for a long period of time these days as compared to past times, the fact that people don't have a connection to community as much as they did before is actually, I think, pretty explicable.
And the third factor in this is that many Americans have come to believe that our political system is just fundamentally flawed.
I mean, it is fundamentally flawed in ways that I could talk about for a long time. Like, you know, this is one example, Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden. I mean, okay, Joe Biden became president of the United States while being completely brain dead. The Democratic Party, without a vote, put Kamala Harris into the position of his successor. I don't know. I mean, and you know, the lack of term limits on representatives, a lack of sense when it comes to this person is an octogenarian and cannot function in just doing mundane tasks. Maybe they shouldn't be in a position of political power. There are some fundamental problems with our political process and the state of the political class in this country. Those things need to be solved, in my opinion. However, the people that have to solve them are the people in political power. And to do so would, by extension, cut themselves off at the kneecaps as far as their power, influence, and longevity in their positions. So how do you make government officials and politicians make decisions that will decrease their power or their paycheck? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd love for there to be an easier answer, but here we are.
Basic trust in the government to do what's right.
What's right? What's right? Oh, okay. What's right?
It's vacillated, but it's just fallen and flatlined for over 20 years.
I can't imagine why.
And Americans today are more likely to believe their elected officials care more about winning those partisan skirmishes and even enriching themselves than they care about the act of listening and representing their constituents.
And is there, okay, I get that you're a research firm and everything, and you're giving us the results of people's surveys and stuff, but is there any truth to these things? Are there articulable, rational reasons for people to feel this way? Did you do anything about, because the way this is coming across is that somehow, and again, this is just my interpretation so far of how he's expressing this stuff, it sounds like he's saying, you know, Americans have been misled. You know, they've been bamboozled into thinking this way. And I'm like, I don't know about that. So I'm wondering where he's going to take this. Like, all of these results are just a mirage, or that they're based in some kind of reality.
And these three factors, partisan polarization and civic disconnection and cynicism about the political system, they all sort of feed off of each other.
Yes, it's a feedback loop.
They each reinforce the other, and they're accelerated by a fragmented media ecosystem, by an algorithmically driven digital ecosystem, to the point where what Americans are telling us, they just feel the country's, the centrifugal forces, right? That we're just getting pulled farther and farther apart.
Yeah, so here's the thing. There are problems in this country that need to be addressed, but a lot of things are being so overblown, and the hyperbolization, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm making it up now, of a lot of things has gone nuts. If you listen to your average left-wing activist and their interpretation of reality compared to facts, it is so off into Never Never Land. There was this, my YouTube feed now gives me these Caleb Hammer clips. You know, Caleb Hammer, the financial audit guy. Some of his stuff is kind of entertaining in a, as has been described by many others, in a Jerry Springer kind of way. But one of the recent clips had on a literal blue-haired, liberal, Gen Z activist type girl, and not talking so much about the financial stuff, but he started challenging her on some of the things she was saying about how the country works and what recent history has been and how things are. And even I was surprised by just how much utter, absolute false nonsense was coming out of this lady's mouth that she stated plainly, casually as fact. And there's even a few things that she said that were demonstrably false that Caleb Hammer either didn't know about or it didn't catch, that I was just taken aback, like, how are you operating in reality this way? Well, you're obviously operating in a bubble. Yes. Okay, so I guess in this talk, my question is, a couple of questions. First, is he going to acknowledge the realities that might be justifiably leading people to have this opinion about our government or the state of things? But either way, two, is he going to offer some kind of solution? Because he talks about a path forward earlier. What would he suggest?
The common bonds feel strained.
Uh-huh.
As we came into this semi-quincentennial year, 59% of Americans versus 40% told us that this country's best days are behind us.
Well, I'll tell you what. It depends on what we're talking about. Because as of right now, compared to, say, the late 80s to mid 90s, our best days as far as racial discrimination in this country are behind us. Things were far better back in the late 80s through the 90s up to the early 2000s. But DEI, being allowed to run rampant, has turned back the clock on a whole bunch of things that we were purportedly, and I think demonstrably, making progress on in far greater strides back in the mid-90s. So in that sense, yeah, we've stepped backwards in major ways. But that's just one subject. That's not everything. It's not the entire world to me, despite what the focus of my channel has been over the last several years. So I guess, does your Pew Research break down that sentiment into topics and categories, or just some sort of bland beige blob of sentiment?
Not in front of us, 59 to 40.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm circling deceptive statistics, because that is too broad a sentiment to just state, oh, well, no. On what subjects? You know, talk about the economy, civil rights, technology, healthcare, that kind of thing. Break it down into subjects. And maybe the Pew Research Center has, but if he doesn't do it in this talk, then it doesn't count.
I don't know. How would you answer that question?
I would ask for specifics. I would want some clarity on what you're asking me.
Yeah. And if your thinking is maybe behind us, like, what does it take to turn that lens?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me? What's the average life expectancy in this country now versus 50 years ago? Is it higher or lower? I mean, it sounds very basic, but you know, that's one of the places I would start as far as like the welfare of a nation. What is the average life expectancy of a resident of this nation from now going back 50 years? Like half a century. Is it better or worse?
Right.
right?
I mean, it's easy to get discouraged and depressed even.
You seem to be cheerleading this on rather than offering an alternative.
The question is, what do we do about it?
Yes, and you're nearly halfway through your talk. You've barely acknowledged the justifiable causes of everyone's sentiments in some instances, whether they are things like actual politician behavior, actual outcomes to government action, or maybe the hyping up of discord and polarization by media outlets, the intentional ginning up of things like January 6th and Donald Trump's evil all over the place all the time, every day. But okay, what do you offer up as a solution?
And in my experience, that question almost always starts with each of us. So let me offer 3 quick things.
3 quick things! That's a list! Circling a list on the board. I'm also going to circle benevolent condescension because he's just... and leaves out vital context, circling that one. So on the board so far, we have systemic or institutional, sales pitch for product or service, deceptive statistics, leaves out vital context, contradicts own point or fails to make argument, a list, and benevolent condescension. We might be in mind reading assumes motives territory. Actually, you know what? I'm going to circle mind reading assumes motives, because without more granular analysis of some of the things that he's talking about, he just sort of hand waves into a conclusion without looking at the bits and pieces that make it up.
The first, I might see a little glow off of a couple faces in the dark theater. We probably should put the phones down, right?
Oh, well, if there wasn't any benevolent condescension before, now there's put your phones down. Put your phones down. Okay. Sorry, Mom.
They're not helping.
Oh, wait, no. Wait, that was the first. Wait. That wasn't just a comment made by observations of the audience. That is part of his 3 prepared points. Okay. Put down your phones. I mean, depending on what we're talking about, that might not be bad advice, but to chide your audience for it.
And maybe the way to think about it is that our addiction to, or commitment to, whatever language works for you, those devices is really taking away our most valuable asset in our communities. It's our attention, right?
Okay. Fair enough. I agree. I don't have a smartphone, specifically for reasons like personal security and because I don't want to get any more addicted to devices than I absolutely have to. So, yeah, okay. I mean, in sentiment, I agree with him. I don't think that's inherently the problem, but it does contribute to attention span and just being aware of what's going on around you. I cannot count how many times I've been walking down the sidewalk and somebody's coming towards me and they're looking at their phone, and you can just tell. You can just tell that they are completely oblivious to anything going on around them. And you get within like 5 or 6 feet of them and you just have to dodge because you can tell they're not spatially aware that there's someone else coming up in front of them. And so I have to step to the side, and only then, when they see some kind of movement, they go, oh, and then they suddenly, jolt awake from whatever fugue they were in. So, for reasons not completely, I'm sure, aligned with his point, I do agree with the sentiment.
Our ability to connect at a human level. And that gets me to my second point, is we do need to be talking to each other more.
I agree. I think we should all be communicating more and speaking our minds. Jill Powers, how did you go from hairdressing to TEDx talks? Now, Jill Powers, This is a TED Talk, Jill Powers. This is cream of the crop, top of the heap, #1 talk presentation. He's made it to the mountaintop from doing hair, but at least it's not a TEDx talk. I mean, going from hairdressing to TEDx talk sounds like that's a pretty easy trip. You know, that's like going to the grocery store and picking up some eggs. Going to a TED talk, well, that's going to the big city. That's city mouse versus country mouse kind of stuff right there. Anyway. People across the street looking at the Black Mirrors. Black Mirror. I used to conference, but when he's going to present a real argument, well, that's what I'm waiting for. It feels like he's constantly stalling. He doesn't have anything else to contribute. It's like, we did a bunch of really broad level surveys and got some really broad level sentiments from people. And did you know Americans are polarized? And Americans have always been polarized. The extremity and the rancor with which they express their polarization these days, I will agree, is beyond the beyond. But he's not willing to either approach causes for that or give justifications for people's cynicism or skepticism about the government or the way things work. Or whose fault it is that we are so polarized, especially during the course of and after the pandemic. But anyway, so for his first step to addressing the problem of our polarization is to get off the smartphones. I wouldn't necessarily disagree.
Ability to connect at a human level. And that gets me to my second point.
Okay, so that's it. Just get off your entire of 3 points. 1/3 of your argument to solve this problem is simply get off of cell phones. Smartphones, pardon me. Okay, what's your second point?
Is we do need to be talking to each other more.
Yes, I agree.
And in a way, the American public today has become afraid to have conversations about their democracy.
Why do you think that it... Okay, again, I can only speak from my limited sphere as a tiny YouTube content creator. What happened to me and my fellows whenever we tried to talk about things going on in the world for that period of time between 2020 and 2023, 2024, thereabouts? We got demonetized, deplatformed, demonized, and delegitimized by the social media platforms, by the government. Oh, you're talking about conspiracy theories. Oh, we're going to cancel you. Oh, we're going to send somebody to look into you. Oh, we're going to cancel your account or terminate your access, and on and on and on. Why do you think that is? This is not a mystery. Okay, there is no Robert Stack coming out from behind the street lamp with in all wonderment, how did this happen? Why do you think people feel that way? Are they just making it up? Or are there provable, recorded reasons why people became very, very concerned with saying the wrong thing for the better part of 3 or 4 years in this country? Any ideas?
Because we've allowed the frame to be set around our grievances and our fears and our differences. But
no, because there was government and institutional retribution for saying the wrong thing, for talking against the party line, for asking reasonable questions and expressing reasonable doubts about what we were being told in a time of crisis where people in power were taking advantage of us. Oh, okay. Out of absolute fury right now.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? right?
You are part of the problem. You are sugarcoating and hand-waving the real things that were going on to cause this to happen. It wasn't some, abstract sentiment that Americans have been duped into. No, we weren't allowed to speak our minds. Do you remember that? I don't even remember what her title was. The Biden administration tried to create, for all intents and purposes, a ministry of truth. They appointed some lady who was an absolute Looney Tune, but she was supposed to be the one to be a social media czar or an information czar or something. You remember that? If you don't remember that, Pepperidge Farms remembers. I remember. God, this guy.
There's a different kind of conversation we can be having.
Oh, can we have conversations? I mean, we can have conversations more easily now. Could we then?
That's what we're here for today.
Well, yeah. Well, I tell you what, that's why, in part, I look at TED and TEDx talks, is because they're so random sometimes in their subject matter and their argumentation, and I love listening to different ideas on different topics. You know? And I like analyzing and debating and commentating and considering what you're having to say. Keeps my brain active, keeps the conversation going, encourages debate and critical thinking. Is that what you're doing here by leaving out major facts of the matter?
It's about our hopes for this country and what we can be doing together.
If we're allowed to do it by the powers that be, even when it's in contradiction to the very freedoms in the Constitution you cited at the beginning of all this. You brought up the pandemic as your major example of the period of discord in this country, and yet you're not willing to admit to the obvious problems coming down from on high during that period of time. It's just something that people felt, and they really need to, get past that.
Now, I grant you that's still a hard conversation to start.
Oh, well, thank you for your concession.
Especially with someone you don't know.
After a fashion, I have conversations with people I don't know all the time. But okay.
But nobody can take that small step but each of us.
Sure. What conversation should we be having? This is all very, just like with everything else, very high-level pablum so far. Get off your cell phone, talk to people more. Okay, fine, I guess.
And that's what becomes cumulative.
Uh-huh.
And then third,
Okay, get off your cell phone, talk to people. Okay?
we have to remember that solutions are possible.
It would very much help if you would articulate a problem to be solved first, and not just a set of sentiments that you derived from surveys. I believe solutions are possible. You know why? And this is the curse of perspective. Because I remember a time in my own lifetime when certain things, were not like this. I remember a time before the internet. I remember a time when we had a monoculture in pop culture. I remember a time before DEI. I remember a time before the woke mind virus destroyed people in my life that I care about. So yes, there are solutions because we've been there before and we can get back there again. Unfortunately, getting back there again has been branded as old-fashioned, racist, sexist, etc., etc. So, what do you propose?
Right? That the Constitution of this nation, signed just a mile from here in 1787, gives us the right. It actually gives us the obligation to take things into our own hands.
In what fashion?
because the founders, in all their wisdom and all their flaws, understood that when any system of government becomes static, it becomes stuck.
What does that... Just within the last, 5 years, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Affirmative action was overturned. Birthright citizenship, after a fashion, was just affirmed after being challenged. Yes, we know our Constitution and our laws are fluid. They can change with reinterpretation or amendment over time. That was true during the pandemic, and yet here we are. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything you're talking about? Reminding us of the ability of our laws to change has done what? And is doing what to the problem you're talking about?
Right?
Right.
So we have to remember that our democracy is dynamic.
Federal Republic. 2 words. Federal, we are a federation of states. Republic, represented and governed by the people. Right? People are elected to represent the people through a democratic process, but we are not a democracy. Federal Republic.
And what I mean by that is not just that our democracy has to...
What? Okay, dude, what does our democracy have to do with people's polarization one to another between the two extremes of the parties? What? How does okay, I'll take your lineup. How does democracy cure that polarization? I mean, if everybody has faith in democracy, right, and there's been plenty to be sown on either side of the aisle to doubt every election that happens now, whether reasonable or otherwise, what would faith in democracy do to stop the polarization? Because at that point, all you're talking is about if it was a lack of faith in democracy, then the problem is a lack of faith in the legitimacy of the people running the country, right? Okay, if you want to address people's belief in an illegitimacy of the people running the country to be in the positions that they're in, okay then, let's push forward something like the Save America Act, where only citizens, identifiable citizens, can vote. How about that? I mean, that would bolster faith in democracy pretty quick, right? I don't hear you saying something like that. So I'm confused as to what the point of this is or what your argument is.
Figure out how to address emerging issues and technologies, right?
Emerging what the fuck are you talking about? Emerging issues and tech. I can only assume you're talking about AI. What does addressing emerging issues with AI have to do with anything? Unless you're talking about election security and legitimacy. What? I'm backing up a little bit. Maybe I missed something. I don't know.
And what I mean by that is not just that our democracy has to figure out how to address emerging issues and technologies, right? To be sure, the founders, I'm pretty convinced, couldn't imagine this thing we're calling artificial intelligence.
Did I call it, or did I call it? Ay, caramba. Let's see. The Assassin of the Grey. Democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Good quote. Good quote. Captain JPS. Happy America 250 Day. And to you, sir. Jill Powers, using technology, smoke and mirrors to fool the gullible right-wingers and gaslighting them as the problem. Right, it's technology, guys. So we just don't know how to handle AI. That's what's causing our democratic divisions. Not that this was all happening back in 2020, 2021, before AI became a thing. No, it's only now. Only now. Why is that different than what's currently happening? In what way? Are you talking to me or talking to him? I need some clarity. I like to answer questions posed to me if I can answer them.
And offer us advice about how we should think about what it means for our society, for our politics, for our economy.
This is filler. This is sawdust in the sausage. AI has nothing to do with the polarization in this country as you've described it up to this point. You showed a chart that showed American dissatisfaction one to another or whatever, going from 1972 to 2024 with a downward slope ever since. Long before AI was even a subject that anybody cared about. It's got nothing to do with nothing. This is a dodge. This is you trying to make your talk sound relevant in the modern day while saying nothing at all.
I mean, we're going to have to figure that one out.
Just like with the internet, just like with television, just like with radio, just like with the printing press. Yes, emerging technologies have to be assessed, evaluated, and integrated into our lives in a reasonable manner and probably have legislation along the way. It's nothing new. I know, it's crazy to say AI is nothing new. The conversations and the vicissitudes of our society based on a new technology is nothing new. You're talking about faith in democracy writ large, which transcends current technological advances. Again, it's like this part of the talk is, hello, fellow kids. And I bet he has absolutely no functional knowledge of AI or its potentials anyway, and it's functionally irrelevant to this conversation.
Right. I'm actually talking about something more fundamental.
No, you're not. You just brought up AI. AI is not fundamental to anything. You took that whole time to talk about nothing.
Which is that the founders understood that any system of government that's carefully balancing our liberties and governance, if left still for too long, sort of becomes trapped.
For Christ's sakes, man, how many different times can you remind us, oh, the founders made sure that there were ways to change the Constitution? We know! We know! Jay Blizza, thank you so much. That guy looks like Phil Spector with a haircut. Oh man, Phil Spector. And there's an image I haven't had in my head in a long time. Thank you, Jay Blizza. Yeah. Half of this talk is this guy bemoaning the fact that he thinks people don't understand that the Constitution is amendable. Or that our government was constructed to not be static.
So take partisanship.
Okay, take partisanship.
Founders couldn't have imagined the Republican and Democratic parties of 2026.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the founders could not have imagined political partisanship as a concept.
But they absolutely understood that political polarization was fundamental.
What? Yes, the political parties of 2026. Put whatever label or name on it you want. Yes,
It was going to happen in any democratic system and needed to be attended to, or it would become dangerous. They couldn't have fully understood how large the population of this country would grow.
Yes. Okay. Keep leaning on the cloistered perspective of people living 250 years ago, as though that means something. As you've said, we as a society have carried forward the foundational values and ideals that they came up with and adopted them over time through amendments. What they could or could not have imagined back then doesn't mean anything now because it's in our hands to make it fit with how things are as best as possible. What does that have to do with anything?
And its distribution and its diversity.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh! He said the D word. Now, that doesn't automatically mean we're talking about DEI thing here, but...
But they absolutely understood that how we take the voice of that public and convert it into effective representation through elections was going to require constant attention and adaptation.
You have made this point 4 times now, at least. You are wasting time.
Or it would get trapped or even hijacked. I mean, look at what we're doing with redistricting today.
Yeah, what are we doing with redistricting today? Oh yeah, that's right. The Supreme Court said you can't gerrymander on the basis of race. It took us this long to figure out, gosh, maybe we shouldn't make our electoral process racist. And? Right.
They could.
Okay, so look at what we're doing with redistricting today. And just let that sit. You're not going to talk about, well, what are we doing with redistricting today? Just
couldn't have fully understood how huge this country's economy would be.
I don't care what the founders could have possibly imagined about 250 years in the future. I can't imagine what things are going to look like 250 years in the future. What has that got to do with anything? You say it once. The founders laid down a foundation of solid values and ethics, but allowed for the ability for the government and the people to adapt to changing times and not keep things rigid or act like a tyrant. They didn't want the Constitution to be a textual tyrant. Because who are they fighting? They were fighting a king and a monarchy. So in order to persevere beyond their own lives and ensure that this country does not devolve into a tyranny of either text or individual, they kept it malleable. We know. You don't have to keep saying it. And the novelty of, gosh, they couldn't have possibly imagined Pokemon Go means nothing.
And the amount of money in our system and how that would influence politics, but they...
The founders couldn't possibly have understood what money would do to influence politicians. Oh, no, they didn't understand graft or corruption. Or did they?
They did understand, and you can see it in their writing, that money was a fundamental challenge that every...
Okay, so they fundamentally understood the risk of money in politics, but they couldn't have imagined the proportionality going forward. Then what does it matter? What point are you making by saying these things? The volume of the population they couldn't possibly imagine, but the fundamentals of how political processes work they did. The amount of money that is going on now they couldn't possibly imagine, but they understood the fundamental risks of money in politics. This guy is driving me up the fucking wall.
Democracy was going to have to balance if it cared about representation. And in all of these spaces, they never thought that there could be one...
I don't want to hear that phrase again. The founders could not have thought. The founders could not have imagined. Stop it.
One solution. Because every time you fix a problem, another problem arises.
Use the phrase whack-a-mole. Please, use the phrase whack-a-mole.
That's not a flaw. That's the nature of a democratic republic. That's
federal republic. Federal republic.
That's what we signed on for, right? So
You notice how under his breath, after each one of these statements, he says, right? You know, he's asking the audience for affirmation because it sounds like he's not even certain of what he's saying himself. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Oh, boy. Hi, Scribe. Happy day after my birthday. What? It was your birthday? I agree. This guy looks like Phil Spector with a haircut. This guy is doing his own wall of sound word salad. Yes, word salad. Long delayed. I should have circled it. But with the founders couldn't have imagined. The founders could have imagined. The founders could imagine. But it was your birthday yesterday. Well, Chicago Mike. You know, I can't let you get away without a birthday song. So, Chicago Mike, this one's for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chicago Mike. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Chicago Mike. Happy 55th. Hope it was a good one. There's still 4 minutes left of this thing. I can't get through a sentence he says now without losing my mind.
we can all think about our biggest problems with government today.
We can. And?
But I'm here to also say that we can think of solutions.
I can think of solutions like term limits for representation. I know it's a controversial thing. Term limits. We don't have, you know what? The moniker of career politician should be something to look down upon, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the Bernie Sanders of the world never had a real job. Yeah, there should. I think there should be term limits on representation in the House and the Senate. You serve your time, you go back to the private sector. Or you move on to a different aspect of politics. I mean, you can be a state representative and then a congressional representative, and then you can be a senator. I mean, if you want to hop, skip, and jump your way through all the political elements and spheres, if you can make it that far, by all means. But any particular House, Senate, state, whatever, should be term limits. As far as I'm concerned. And that's it. You don't get to run again. You don't get to keep hopscotching your way through a career of just being a politician. I think that's something that we should not encourage people to aspire to or allow, in my opinion. Frosted Glass, the founders couldn't have imagined Mike's birthday. It's true. It's true. Frosted Glass has added an amendment to our speaker's talk that is just as valid as everything else he said with that prefix. So, anyway. You're all nuck and futz. Every democratic republic in history was a dictatorship in all but name, i.e. the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea. Exactly. Exactly. Good point. Take away their pensions, too. Yeah, well, I mean, if... well, not only that, but I mean, punish insider trading, like for real. If a politician advocates for a particular industry, they should not be financially vested in that industry or be making money off of it. There should be a conflict of interest clauses and all types of things. You go, you serve, you're done, you go back to the private sector. These are not supposed to be careers. In my mind, they are not supposed to be careers. They're supposed to be limited terms of service for the public good and not lifelong appointments.
Last year, we interviewed Americans across the country and
Did you?
asked them, what would you do to fix our political system?
Term limits. Representational term limits.
Boy, did they have a lot to say,
I bet they did. Are you going to tell us?
right?
Right?
At the biggest level, a vast majority of Americans are willing to engage with major reform to our political system.
Like What?
Out of scale, actually, with other countries of our means.
You know why that is? Because we're one of the few countries where we have the ability to express those thoughts without fear of immediate retribution or disappearing. Except during the course of the pandemic and onward. But what solutions were put on offer? Are you going to tell us?
Their priorities would be improving the quality of representation, reducing the influence of money in our political system,
I'm all for it. What do you propose?
diffusing that negative partisan tone that our dialogue just gravitates towards.
What? Okay, I'll tell you what, since you're just the messenger here, what did they propose? Looking at the chart he's putting up on the screen, how do Americans want to fix democracy? Section 1, change the system. Does your country's political system need major changes, complete reform? Something like 80 some odd % say yes. In America, can you believe it? Second section, curb political cash. When it comes to money in campaigns, two overarching options. People and organizations should be able to spend all they want, 16%. 11% are, I guess, in the uncertain category. And then 72%. There should be limits on the amount of money people and organizations should spend. There are limits. So I guess it depends on what you're talking about. We're talking about like political PACs having unlimited funding and stuff. I could agree, but then it's a First Amendment issue. We just had, I forget what it was, in the last couple of weeks, we had a question go before the Supreme Court about spending money in politics, and it came down to, you know, putting your money where you want it to go is a First Amendment issue. It's expressing yourself. So unless you want to start changing that somehow, I don't know. And the third section is tone it down. Should elected officials, and I guess this is the question, be able to use aggressive language without worrying that some people may act on what they say? And the overall was no. Instead, the majority said avoid aggressive language because it could encourage violent action. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by aggressive language. But yes, if you are inciting people to take violent action, provably so, yeah, that should be discouraged. If you're simply using the word fight in your rhetoric, as Trump was jumped on all over the place, and yet Democrats almost intentionally, like Maxine Waters telling people to go confront the opposition and seemingly receiving no retribution whatsoever for doing that. Yeah, but I mean, it's a case-by-case basis. What do you mean by aggressive language?
And they're willing to engage with conversations about a whole host of reforms from
Sure, we are willing to engage with them. Are we allowed to express them publicly without the government or social media companies cracking down on us? And that's a legitimate question.
long-standing ideas like term limits for members of Congress,
Yes! Hey, there you go.
to newer ideas like age limits for elected officials.
Is age limits for elected officials a new idea? I'm pretty sure that question came up more than once during the course of Strom Thurmond's emplacement in politics. But anyway.
Or judges, or getting rid of the Electoral College, or other.
Yeah, getting rid of the Electoral College. You want to talk about the sensibility of that notion?
Electoral reforms. There are so many ideas out there.
There are a lot of ideas out there. There are some that are more sensible than others. And that's why we can debate on them, hopefully, still.
That a majority of Americans are ready to think about.
They're already thinking about them. You just listed them off. How would term limits on representatives be imposed? Who would have to do that? Who would have to pass that law? There be the paradox, right? If a majority of the American public said we want term limits on our elected representatives, who would have to be the ones to actually make that happen? And would they? When a majority of the American public want the Save America Act passed, when they want rational election reforms by way of ensuring that only American citizens are voting to be made law, and they're not doing it, the representatives, what would you have on offer to break that particular blockage in the process? Anything? I mean, I'm happy to hear ideas.
Now, I'm not here to advocate for any of those particular reforms. Each of them can be debated for their pros and their cons.
Yes.
What I'm here to say is we really need to be having those debates.
Who needs to be having those debates? Again, the American public can debate to the end of time about, again, just term limits for elected representatives. Who has to debate that subject officially? Who has to, for all intents and purposes, cut themselves off at the shins to accede to public sentiment? And will they? And why would they? And what mechanism do we have to make them do so? Oh, well, you have the ballot box. How's that worked out? Like hell he ain't, or otherwise he would not say it. I'm not here to advocate for one thing or the other. Not only do we need the Electoral College, but we should have state electoral colleges too. Now, there's something worth debating. You think they're ever going to do that? I just came up to the mic to tell you that I have no specific point. That's for you. Bullshit-o-meter just exploded. I didn't have any big reason to come up here. I'm not here advocating for anything. I'm just telling you everything's terrible and everybody thinks it's terrible. Big Ian, translation, we want the power and we want to stop your side having it.
And we need to take them seriously.
Who's we? In this construction, who's we? I mean, I take them seriously. If someone says, I wanted to eliminate the Electoral College, and that's a real sentiment that's getting steam over and over again when one side doesn't get their way in an election, I take it seriously in the sense that, holy cow, we can't let that happen. But who are you talking about?
And we need to have the courage to be willing to change a political system that a majority of Americans feel is obviously broken.
Who ultimately has to do that? The elected officials. And what incentive, what leverage do we, the people, have ultimately to make that happen with enough votes to actually affect change? You know, if you elect, let's say, you know, one of the states elects representatives into office in order to impose term limits on representatives. Let's say they do that. They're one of the more reasonable states, let's say. And you've got, you know, a couple of people up in Washington who are working towards that end. And everybody else isn't quite there yet. All the other states, they have people there that are not sure, or they're completely against it, or whatever else. Okay, so those two guys up in the Senate, they say their piece, they make their arguments, falls on deaf ears, cycle turns over, the thing doesn't get done, the people in state X get discouraged, and the next time that they have to have an election, that's not as much of a priority because they tried and they didn't work. You talk about whack-a-mole. Okay. Just having these conversations doesn't lead to meaningful change. And even when, like with the Save America Act, you have an overwhelming majority of the population that agrees with something be done, and it's still not done, how much faith can we all have that something that we want as a nation is going to actually happen? I mean, I'm not here saying that I have an answer to that. But you're standing on a TED Talk, TED stage, acting like an expert in something. Like you have the pulse, you have your finger on the pulse of the American people in thought and philosophy. Like, well, if you're not here to offer a solution, then what are you here to do? Again, just I know I keep pointing this out. Under his after every statement he makes, under his breath he goes, right? Right? He's asking for affirmation. He's not sure. He's not quite. He doesn't think he's quite on firm footing with anything he says. He's looking for the audience to affirm what he's saying.
System that a majority of Americans feel is obviously broken. We sit here in 2026.
Yes.
And our society, our public hasn't engaged in a conversation about constitutional amendment in 55 years.
We haven't engaged in constitutional amendment in 55 years. A lot of people have talked about amending the Constitution for a multitude of different things. Most recently, relatively speaking, was Roe v. Wade. There was a big conversation about the Senate passing a law to amend the Constitution to codify Roe v. Wade into law. That was just a few years ago. Biden put it out on his Twitter. You know, if the Congress passes this, that, and the other, I'll sign it. What? Let's see. What was the last time we officially talked about a constitutional amendment? You're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment?
Since we lowered the voting age from 21 to 18, how many?
Since we lowered the voting age to 21 to 18. When did that happen? It was the 26th Amendment, 1971. Hold on. Okay, well, I guess the Equal Rights Amendment was originally proposed in 1923. I thought it had its deadline go up through the late 70s or something. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Let's see. Oh, it was reintroduced in 1971, approved by the House of U.S. Representatives that year and by the U.S. Senate in 1972. A 7-year deadline beginning in 1979 was included with the legislation. Yeah, so we were having a conversation about amending the Constitution up through 1982. 50 years ago? Yeah, like, no, okay. I guess the only conversation is when an amendment is actually passed. Otherwise, no conversation took place. Thank you, Jay Blizzard. No conversation, only pocket sand. Dale Gribble, pocket sand. Or, you know, you can have pocket sand in Fallout New Vegas. There's a whole run online of Fallout New Vegas where you can only use pocket sand. I think it's Nurbit. Nurbit does a full run where, like, can you beat Fallout New Vegas only using pocket sand? You want to talk about a slog of a playthrough. Holy cats. Anyway, you're all knocking votes. There's been 26 amendments in 250 years. That's an average of 1 per decade. Yeah. But like I say, conversations about constitutional amendments didn't stop 55 years ago. There was at least one other that was going on up through the early 80s. So, Again, if he means conversations only insofar as amendments actually passed, then I guess.
People here remember that conversation, right?
Again, right. At the end of every sentence, this guy, right?
How many people here remember that conversation? Right? It was a while ago. The previous time our Constitution went unamended for a stretch that long was in the lead up to the Civil War.
Oh my gosh. So what amendment of the Constitution do you think needs to happen? Or we just need to have an amendment for the sake of having an amendment? What has that got to do with anything?
We have to remember that our democracy is meant to be dynamic.
I swear, it just won't stop!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Right?
Over and over and over again. Did you guys know that our Constitution's not meant to be static? Did you know that the Constitution was designed to be able to be changed? Did you know when I use the word amendment, I am talking about a change to the thing? Good gravy, this guy.
And through our action. But we've sort of become so afraid of what could be worse.
What? What are you proposing be amended? Simply the fact that we can amend the Constitution does not mean we have to amend the Constitution. It's not a reflexive thing. It's a deliberative thing that takes time, and you have to have a specific thing you're trying to change or fix. What do you propose? The lack of an amendment to the Constitution in 50 years is not inherently a problem or a sign of a weakness of our nation. Unless you've got an argument to that end, what are you talking about? Over and over again you've said, oh, remember, the Constitution is malleable. Yes. But it's a choice, not a requirement. So the lack of an amendment in 50 years is a sign of stagnancy, in your opinion. Nothing else has changed. No other laws have been passed. No other tweaks have been made. No other decisions by the Supreme Court have refined things. Nothing, everything stayed static for 50 years, guys. Since the 26th Amendment, we've been in an absolute case of frozen time as a nation. So was this entire talk about encouraging us to amend the Constitution just for the hell of it?
Particularly, could it benefit the other side, right? That we've stopped really imagining how we can make it better.
Then by all means, imagine with me, or just imagine in your own time on this stage that you have all to yourself, unbidden. Imagine for a moment a point. This guy couldn't find a point in a pencil factory. What are you talking about? What are you arguing for? What would you like to see happen? Or even if you're just the messenger, what amendment to the Constitution does the public at large most support? Could you at least give me that? If that's what all this is leading to, in your polling, what does the American people think should be added or changed in the Constitution? Or do you have anything to offer here?
So,
a needle pulling thread.
I want to go back to the Declaration of Independence
By all means.
because after enumerating those inalienable rights and after asserting that authority comes from the governed.
Yes, because we're a republic, a federal republic.
They go on to say
Yes.
that whenever any system of government becomes destructive to those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish that government.
Yes. And what are you advocating happen?
Now, in the context of 1776, there's no doubt that they were saying they had no choice but to abolish the system they were living under and start from scratch.
Yes.
But it was their hope that future generations could alter and iterate on the framework they built.
And we have, demonstrably so, even up to the current date.
Those solutions are not just going to drop down magically on us. It's going to take hard work.
You know, maybe a civil war, maybe people losing their lives fighting for their rights and the rights of others they will never know under law in the future. Yes.
But if this country is going to stay whole, is going to thrive, is going to be an inspiration for future generations,
ask some of the visitors for the World Cup what they think of America versus what they thought of America before getting here. Who knows how much inspiration we are exporting back to certain countries after the World Cup now.
we have to be willing to commit to make those same brave leaps of democratic imagination.
Who says we're not? What? You know, if you listen to this guy completely out of context with no reference of anything, you would think that apparently this country has not changed in its perspective, in its laws, in its customs, and its values since the 26th Amendment. He's advocating for change, not any particular change. He's advocating for amending the Constitution simply for the sake of amending the Constitution, it sounds like. All based on sentiment of polarization. People are really divided right now. Boy, oh boy, how do we solve that? By just changing things? I mean, if this entire talk had been, we really need to get back to a place of constructive criticism and civil debate. You know, because the polarization, the rhetorical rancor, and vitriol that has overtaken our dialogue nationally is legitimately poisonous to the ability to reach compromise or reach reasonable changes or find solutions. I'd have almost nothing to say on that. I'd be like, yeah, I know, I agree. But this has just been all over the place and a whole bunch of nothing.
Thank you.
Oh, that was it. Okay, all right, well, boy, oh boy. I don't know that I've gotten quite that passionate about a talk recently. But man, every time, the founders couldn't have imagined. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. Okay, let's go to the bingo card. Remember, this is Bingo Card America. Link to the bingo card is in the description. I'll put it again in the chat if you want to follow along. If you want to add a WTF circle, that's just the X key on your keyboard. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to go over the bingo card one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them. I'll get to you momentarily. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I'm tempted to circle it on the founders couldn't have imagined, but now he wasn't offering up something new. So. Patriarchy. No. Collectivize his own demographic. I think it's unavoidable with the statistics and the surveys and everything as Americans and so on, so fair enough. Privilege. Not sure on that one. Feminism, no. Microaggressions or unconscious bias. I don't think the notion of unconscious bias is avoidable when you're talking about broad-based surveys and conclusions about, or at least, and his extrapolating a conclusion from those things. So I think that's fair. Childhood or family anecdote. He never talked about himself at all, save that he works at the Pew Research Center. But he never brought up his own personal past or his family, so. Plays victim. I can already see certain members of the audience getting ready to make that argument, so I'll just let that sit. Marginalized or marginalization. I mean, I don't think you can talk about polarization or people being overtaken by the majority or something when you're talking about statistics or politics without hitting on that, even in the abstract or the aggregate. So I'm going to circle that one. And with
Bingo! What? Bingo! Bingo! Yeah! Bingo! Okay!
DEI philosophy. I mean, he used the word diversity once, but that was enough. White supremacy. Oddly enough, he never brought up race or race relations or anything in this talk, so. Weightless example or non sequitur. The Constitution hasn't been amended in 50 years. And anecdote that probably never happened. We haven't had a conversation about a constitutional amendment in 50 years. Wrong. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Again, he never talked about himself or made himself a poster child of the problem, whatever the problem was. Economic disparity. Well, I mean, you can't really avoid that one when you're talking about money in politics, swaying outcomes and so on. So I think that's fair.
Bingo. What?
Of course!
So there we go, guys. That is my review. What do you have to say? If you have arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. I'll scroll up a little bit, but if I missed your argument, please just repost it. And I'll get to some other comments as well. Zed the Snarky, passionate. Sir, you were 2 sentences away from sending your fist through the monitor. That guy, I mean, the repetition of nonsense and just leaving off like a meaningful point to it all. And I really do hate it when somebody spends, 10 minutes of a 12-minute talk or something on a stage ranting and raving about something and then suddenly says, now I'm not here to tell you this, or I'm not here to offer solutions, or what do we do? I don't know. Like, that stuff really irritates me. I mean, if you start off at the top and saying, there is no good answer or there is no good solution to this problem, but I'm going to go over, if you front load your honest inability to come up with a straight and level solution to something, I can accept that. I don't know can be a valid conclusion when discussing or thinking about a problem. There's no one way to solve for this thing, whatever it is. Okay, fair enough. It's worth talking about, fine. But don't lead me on that we're going to get to a point and then 3/4 of the way through your talk tell me you don't have a point. You never came with a point. That stuff really, really irritates me. Alan Thyler, thank you so much for the how's it going, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Oh, there's a Kiever Dam Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan Thyler. Appreciate it. Okay, Frosted Glass, plays victim. He lives in a democracy that just refuses to change anything. I mean, I did get Okay, and this is where the rubber meets the proverbial road. When someone plays the victim, they have to be articulating something from the external that is, injusticing them, right? Self-vilification or wretchedness comes from within. Plays victim means conjuring an enemy from the outside. And the only problem here is, and so Frosted Glass, I don't necessarily disagree, but I want to hear from you or anybody else to overcome this obstacle. He was never self-referential. So, yes, in sort of crafting this amorphous problem of polarization and the weakness of our democracy and so on, how would you, and I'm just asking, how would you cross that bridge from just talking about it in the abstract to him making it personal, where he's playing the victim when he was never really self-referential in that way? How would you do that? Might still get the square circled, or it might not, but I'm just curious. In the meantime, Adabasi, privilege as us having the privilege to update our Constitution. Okay, he also might have mentioned the Constitution hasn't been amended. Yes. He did take time to mention that. Yes. Okay. So when he kept comparing Americans' ability to have these conversations, to amend, to change, and so on, as compared to so many other nations, yes, we do have privileges in regards to the control over our government that a lot of nations don't. So even if it was a little bit on the abstract side, it's true. Okay, fair enough. Circling privilege. Let's see. Who's next? The guy was like Vosh, says a lot of words but doesn't actually say anything meaningful. I don't know that I ever watched that guy. It's one of those like internet personalities that I hear a lot of people talk about. I see a lot of videos being done on, but I've never bothered to listen to him. It's just like, okay. What little I know doesn't make me at all attracted to want to listen to someone like Vosh or Jean-Francois. Jean-Francois. How I love Jean-Francois. Does anybody, is he still around? Is Jean-Francois still around? Is he still streaming? I don't even know. There's certain names and personalities from long ago that were talked about a lot that I don't hear about anymore. So. BG. Another thing that didn't happen. He forgot about the 27th Amendment. So we haven't passed an amendment in 34 years, not 50 squared. Okay, I admit I'm not as sensitive. Well, you're absolutely right. First proposed in 1789, it didn't get ratified until 1992. BG, good for you. I mean, we were both right, but you were more right because that was more recent than the Equal Rights Amendment up to 1982. Good job. All I have to say is, Jay Blizzard, bow da ba da bang diggy diggy diggy, said the boogie, and up dropped the boogie. I should be able to recite that by heart, but trying to read it at the same time doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same. Let's see. Sash the Gray. This is the America card, and there is no tar and feather this loyalist scum box. Disappointed. Yeah, sorry. I put this together very quickly. So, let's see. I thought JF lost his potato in the woods. I don't know. Privilege. No. He brought up people wanting to limit spending on politics because of super rich, aka privilege. Yeah, true. Got privilege covered. Okay, so plays victim. Did I miss any plays victim modifications? I hope not. Maybe I did. So yeah, Frosted Glass said plays victim. Any other? Yeah. So again, and I'm happy to take a creative answer to this. In the absence of him being self-referential, how can we qualify plays victim to what he was talking about? Any other arguments for squares to be circled or any more enhancements to that one? Let me know in the chat. Doesn't Vosh have a fondness for horse genitalia? I don't know, but I know there's at least one person that has expressed in the past a suspicious level of enthusiasm for such things.
Of course!
A horse is a horse!
Of course!
So, you know, but that's a whole other thing. Plays victim. The founding fathers couldn't imagine You know what? Just for that. Okay. You got me. The founding fathers couldn't have imagined my lack of fashion sense. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Trigger warning next time. Wait. Was that a reference to Trigger the horse? Was that a reference? Trigger warning? Or is it the of course thing? Was that yeah, okay. You know, Roy Rogers and his horse Trigger. Why do I know that? My mother. Actually, my mother's sister. I don't know that I've ever talked about Pam before. Just because I'm now I'm getting all sentimental. My mother grew up with an older sister. Her name was Pam, and she had a lot of challenges. She had a lot of learning disabilities and mental limitations. But my sister loved her. And Pam loved boys. Now, when I say that, what I mean is that she would see like boys and male role models and movie stars and stuff and just be enamored with them. And so when she would see like Roy Rogers on the screen or, or anybody in her life that she became fond of, she'd say, "My boy, me." When she liked a boy, just because of a reflex, she'd go, "My boy, me." And that kind of tells you something about the level of her ability to interact and comprehend with the world. I never got to meet my aunt. She died. She made it to her 20s. But all my mom's stories about her are just, the most adorable things ever, and how much I wish I could have met my aunt. So suddenly I think about Roy Rogers because of Trigger warning, and I think about the aunt I never knew, and Anyway, sorry, I got sentimental there for a second. I apologize. Lack of fashion sense, lack of anything in the same country as a point. It's true. So, I apologize, Dina B, for the lack of a warning for the of course. Scribelite, not serious. Oh, well, if you predicate it like that, then okay. Self-vilification, I am from the Pew Research. Man, yeah, no. For the sanctity of the card, yeah, I can't quite circle that, but that's a good one. That's a good one. Anyway, guys, we got 2 bingos out of it. A energetic and full-throated conversation about a federal republic and how we need to reset our democracy for no particular reason, but because we have to, and the solutions to our problems are having conversations. Well, to piggyback onto some things he said and try to make them maybe a bit more coherent and meaningful, I agree. We should be having more conversations. We should be having more civil discourse. We should be considering people's positions and ideas calmly and rationally, unless they keep repeating the founders could never have imagined, and then you're free to absolutely lose your mind on that score. Because civil debate and the ability of we as Americans to disagree on things but not come to blows over them, but to have a challenge of ideas and a competition of values and sentiments is part of what makes this country great. So yes, in that wise, I can agree. We should get off our phones and interact with each other more, come to know where people are coming from, and understand their positions, even if we don't agree with them. And to remember that simply entertaining an idea does not inherently mean you have to accept it. That we don't deplatform people because they might say something we disagree with. But listen, and at worst, or at best, depending on how you look at it, you might understand better why you disagree with somebody and likewise be able to articulate your position better if it comes up again. Or, heaven forfend, you risk the possibility of having your mind changed. Allow for the possibility that you could be wrong. Don't spend your days walking on eggshells or living in a place of being uncertain about everything that you do, but at least entertain the idea that someone could make an argument that could change your mind on something. He's right about one thing, as he repeated over and over and over again. Part of the power of our country is the ability for us to revise our laws and our Constitution when necessary in order to form a more perfect union. You have to be willing to allow yourself to be revised in your thinking or your perspective when new information comes across your path, or when things change to a point that you have to reassess where you are and possibly have to adapt. Those things are true in government, and they should be true in yourself as well. So do not think of yourself as a static creature. And listen to what others have to say, even if you don't agree with them. In fact, especially if you don't agree with them. But you don't have to accept it simply for your sake of your ears accepting new words and so on. So, that's my thought on that. Mr. E, I don't always think I'm right. I just find it harder to operate from the opposite perspective. That's fine. That's fine. As long as you're not just assuming the rectitude of everything you have to say or think about something, as long as you're entertaining occasionally an opposing viewpoint and not dismiss it out of hand, depending on what it is. I mean, individual cases may vary, but and that's, like I said, that's what I, at least in sentiment, what I try to promote in this series particularly. That's forcing myself to listen to people talk about subjects I either have no knowledge of or may have a reflexive contrary opinion about just on the surface of it, but at least giving them a fair shot at making their argument and seeing what they have to say. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the link in the chat to the Gary Sinise Foundation for Veterans. Thank you guys so much for your generosity, your consideration. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Is there a chance that you're not already a member of the Discord server? Well, if you'd like to join the Discord server, a link, it's good for 1 day, link to the Discord server is in the chat right now. Click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you're not a bot, actually watch the stream, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is birthday. Just say hello, birthday, and I'll know that you watched the show. Outside of that, if you are an American and you are celebrating the anniversary of our nation's founding, insofar as the signing of the Declaration of Independence, congratulations to you all for being an American. It's awesome. Don't listen to people say otherwise. Well, no, actually listen to what they have to say otherwise and see if there's any merit to their arguments about why they think it sucks to be an American. Because maybe they have a point to a certain degree. But otherwise, their ability to say so and our ability to listen to it when we're not being banned off the internet for having done so is a great thing. If you're not an American, I think you're awesome. Even if you're not American, it's not your fault. We can't all be born in the perfect nation. But no, all of you from across the world, across the pond, over the border, elsewise, I hope you're all having a great Saturday, regardless of whether you're an American or not. And I hope that if things are not well in your country, that as best as possible, you and your fellow citizens are working towards a better future, because that's effectively what is keeping us together here in America, at least in sentiment, bit by bit, year by year, iteration after iteration. That's our purpose. That's our goal. Time will tell how it all goes. But as far as us surviving and thriving, 250 years and going, I know that's not a very long time compared to some nations or countries in this world, but hey, it's a start. We've got a long way to go. Anyway, everybody, hope you have a good rest of your Saturday. Happy 4th of July. Happy birthday to America. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, if you're not well, please don't be handling fireworks. But if you're not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.